Hello,
Yep. Okay.
everyone out there, Arts Front, in the world of Little Lunch Online. Here we are on the 1st of June, and we are heading up to a significant day. We are heading to Mabo Day. So today we are talking with Edward Monaei and Charles Passi. And before I get started, just want to say a quick and a love-filled acknowledgement of where the land that I am on right now. And please remember, just in the chats, let us know what land you are on. We send our love and respect to the First Nations people of this land. We send our love and respect to the custodians, to the elders, past and present, and to the emerging elders. So, everyone, please just, once again, I'll say it and then you repeat. I know I won't hear you, but that's all right. When I say love, you say respect. Love.
Respect.
Love.
Respect.
Thank you. Yes.
Respect.
So here we are. We are going to be talking Mabo Day. So in 2020, due to COVID-19, Southeast Queensland Mabo Day celebrations are going virtual. As we pay our respects to Eddie Mabo's legacy this year, we ask the questions: where are we at today, and how do we continue to celebrate, acknowledge, and action the legacy of Eddie Mabo in the future? I would like to introduce now Mr. Edward Monaei. Hello. How are you?
Hello, good morning. How are you? I'm very well, thank you.
Yes. Well, I'm going to pass it over to you. And I just want to talk a little bit about the Southeast Queensland Mabo Day Working Group and, how did that begin? Give us a little intro for yourself first.
Yeah. All right. Like you said before, my name's Edward Monaei. I'm a Kairos man from the Torres Straits. I've also got Meriam connections as well, from mum's side to Mer Island. Mabo Day in Brisbane was an interesting start for us. My mum, now deceased, Auntie Sarah Sama, and her younger sister, Auntie Babai Nagai, basically saw that there was a bit of a gap in terms of Torres Strait Islander representation here in Brisbane. And as a result of that, they approached me to talk to me about the idea of having a Mabo Day event on the north side of Brisbane. And I said, oh, look, that's probably a good idea. Let's have a yarn and check in with our colleagues at Brisbane City Council to see whether they've got it on their radar or calendar of events. And it just so happens that at the time that there was, some inquiries made by our Torres Strait Islander communities about Mabo Day and recognising and acknowledging Mabo Day. And so we got together and had a bit of a community meeting about it, and henceforth was the start of Mabo Day celebrations in Brisbane. It was very timely because if you look at what Mabo represents and what it stands for, identity was a big part of that process of the Mabo decision. And regardless of where we live throughout Australia, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people must have that sense of identity in order to be recognised and acknowledged as custodians, caretakers of this great, beautiful land that we call Australia. So, for Mum and Auntie Babai's vision for us to walk through those steps of, making sure that we were okay by the traditional custodians of this country here in Brisbane, to go ahead with that was quite important. And what we actually ended up doing was bridging a very strong relationship with the Aboriginal community of Brisbane. And ever since then, it's just flourished. And it's really good to see that we've finally got a day and a safe cultural platform to acknowledge and recognise the legacy of the Mabo case, to recognise and acknowledge and remember the plaintiffs that were associated with the case, so that their legacy is continually educated through all of our media platforms here in Southeast Queensland, but across the nation as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Wow, that's amazing. And I was just also, I got a little flyer that went up on the Mabo Day Facebook page, and it was like from 2010, I think, that it was saying that was like one of the first events to happen.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. There was a lot of pride when you talk about Mabo and its platform. It really does, because it's been instilled in the Torres Strait Islander and Aboriginal culture. The day of significance for us, it really does bring a lot of sense of pride. And when you've got young people developing artwork like that, back then in 2010, and then to be able to stand back now and look at what they've done, to me shows that they are continually recognising, acknowledging the significance of Eddie Koiki and our plaintiffs. And it shows that the respectful way of us to be able to educate the broader community of just how important this week and this day, June 3, means to us.
Yeah, amazing. That is just so great. And it's been, such an amazing journey, like to actually, in spreading the word, for 10 years now, to have that sort of platform to happen. So, it's interesting times at the moment with what's gone on with COVID and trying to take these platforms online, because usually there would be massive celebrations, and big get-togethers.
This COVID stuff, I tell you, it's really made us as a people rethink how we can engage on a more safer platform. And one thing for sure is that reduces the cost of travel. You can Skype and Zoom in now rather than travel from the islands down to the mainland to participate in an event. But it does take away that cultural element of bringing families together, and to bond as a unified group of people, that shows our representation and where we fit within the circle of Australia and the greater discussion around constitutional recognition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting that there's this idea, there's some great stuff going around at the moment, because you start just being really intensely looking at what's happening on Facebook and stuff like that, but to make Mabo Day a national holiday, because it is a holiday in the Torres Straits. Yeah,
it is. Yes, it is. And you know what, I think that's definitely the bigger aspiration in terms of where we want to go with recognising and acknowledging Mabo Day. And if you look at what the current state of the Queensland education system is about, talking about our Black history and bringing it to the forefront in terms of educating our younger generations now to understand the real and true history of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in Australia, I think that type of genre of discussion needs to escalate to the high levels of and within our Queensland government and Parliament, so that this day, as it is for the days that are celebrated like Australia Day, is a recognised and acknowledged national day of recognition, because the laws that were stated around the inception of terra nullius back then were completely different. And now that we've got a precedent case that's in place that that abolishes the terminologies and understandings of terra nullius into its purest form, is something that we as Australians should be proud of, and then to showcase that it has a platform at a national level that shows recognition that there were people that were inhabitants of this great nation here in Australia. And I think that's something that we need to continually debate in open forums, so that it becomes more of a national discussion rather than individual silo discussions. And then continue to educate in terms of a responsive need to have June 3 as a recognised national day of celebrations for all Australians, because this isn't just about land rights and sea rights. This is about everybody coming to a consolidated table and you know, on the understanding and the basis that we are a nation of people that have a history, and that history needs to be recognised.
Yes, yes, thank you so much. At this point, I'd like to bring Mr. Charles Passi into this discussion. You know, Charles is an eminent person, amazing, amazing bio, but also was on the television. So you might have seen him on a show on the TV. We'll put a link in the bio. Mr. Passi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So yes, in this day today, like, you know, how do we keep on, you know, acknowledging the past, and as non-Indigenous people here too, acknowledging this very, very important and significant time of Australia's history, and how do we keep actioning this as we move into the future, actioning that legacy of Eddie Mabo?
Well, see, that's the thing. What we celebrate is milestones in our history.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is one very big milestone. But each milestone, I think, what this country actually needs is courageous and innovative leadership. Now, for example, this year too is that 20-year mark in reconciliation.
Mm.
It's what we do with it. It's not what we say with it. See, that's the thing. For 28 years in terms of Mabo, we've had a platform that we've stood up and said, look at me, look at me, look at me. You know, Uncle Koiki, Dad, and the other plaintiffs, you know, that won in that historic case. Of course, but that win needs to translate into community freedom. And at the moment, Murray Island is a social disaster. So that's why I think that appropriate leadership needs to step up. You know, this Mabo Day, I mean, we're approaching 30 years. Now, in 30 years, when we've now got young people ready to step up into leadership, but those young people haven't experienced what it was like, for example, in cultural ways of dealing with disputes, land disputes. And when you deal with land disputes, you treat it very sensitively, because your first and utmost responsibility is keeping relationships good. Post-Mabo, now, if we stand on the platform and say, look at me, we're celebrating the fact that we're given a ticket to take each other to court. And in doing so, we spoil our cultural responsibility of having good relationships. I mean, you look at island communities, they're all tiny places. You're living in each other's pockets. So you've got to have a very strong culture of strong relationships. So that's why I think at this time, we need to come together. We need to sit down and plan the future in a better way in how we've been talking about it in the past.
Yes, and that's right. It's like what we do with it, not what we say with it. That's great.
Yeah.
Quite, because it is that thing, like we're here now in 2020, and we can see in all different parts of the world what's going on. Things are definitely, there is a huge need for not only like to recognize what the issues are, but to how we actually put those solutions in place. You know, as someone who does so much work in this, it's quite visionary in a healing space to heal community. Charles, can you talk to me about that a little bit?
Very much so, very much so. And now, if you look at us as Torres Strait Islanders, we've been living in Southeast Queensland. We've occupied this region for many decades. Now, when you look at Mabo, the win was about recognition, recognition of my connection to that land, you know. Now, we as Torres Strait Islanders are living on Aboriginal land, so we need to be the first to truly recognize, and we haven't done that. So we need to come together, and that's what I'm looking at the 30th anniversary. We need to lead the way, and especially here in Brisbane, we need to lead the way for Queensland. We need to lead the way for all Torres Strait Islanders, that we need to truly pay respects. And in our culture and tradition, both in the Eastern language and the Western language, we say we omar or we sibonai, and that is to pay that respects. That we come with bearing gifts and showing our Aboriginal brothers and sisters, the traditional owners of the land that we walk on with great respect, and we ask for forgiveness. You know, because I mean, at the end of the day, we're here. We're prospering on this land. We've got children that are born on this land. They're learning on this land, and at the end of the day, we are even burying our dead. We're laying to rest on traditional Aboriginal land without any real traditional and ceremony and approval. Now that in itself can also give a spiritual repercussion, you know? So we need to heal the land by, first of all, following proper protocol. You know, the Aboriginal culture of welcome to country, we have our own too back in Torres Strait. We celebrate it. Tebud, in our language, Tebud is your circle of friends. So we play, like I was saying before, we pay great attention on keeping that circle of friends happy, because it's all about relationships. And that relationship spread all across the Torres Strait and into the mainland, both mainlands, the southern mainland of Australia and the northern mainland of Papua New Guinea. So it was very important. Otherwise we couldn't trade, you know, we couldn't share each other and things like that. So that's why a culture of great respect and of incredible discipline to make sure that we don't break any of those traditional respects. So, and see, in a way, when we look at how Mabo has given us now the right to take each other to court, that is also given us what's the name, to undermine that traditional respect.
Wow. Yeah, the complexities are so huge, but then at the same time, when you speak on it, it's very clear, you know, for...
see, that's the thing. For too long, we've focused in the wrong area. See, that's like I was saying before. You know, we're living in a world today where it's all about me, when the cultural viewpoint was all about the community and you know, in the future. So in a traditional sense, we always worried about how we keep our relationship strong. Today, it's not about relationships anymore. Today, it's about me. Look at me, look at me, look at me. So this is where, you know, maybe the elders need to come together, cultural heads of families. We need to sit down and say, okay, where to from here? Because our future needs to learn the real way. Otherwise, we can't stand on any platform and say our culture is strong, because it's not, you know?
Yeah. Eddie, Edward, how do you see, you know, really like this amazing legacy? How do you see we move forward? Like, you know, just as we go into this future new normal, into this future world that we want to see happen?
I think it's, you know, sorry, I shouldn't say I think, you know, from my perspective, exactly what, you know, Uncle Charles was saying there, that this is you know, an ongoing discussion and debate that needs to be had in-house in order for us to make our own determination about what is the correct and appropriate cultural processes to move forward as a people. And there are very strict laws associated with that. But, you know, for too long now, we've been living under the policies and legislation of a Westminster system of government that has dictated how we as a people live. And as a result of that, we've seen that there's, you know, ongoing, I mean, we're the most heavily intense studied people in the world, you know, as First Nations people. And yet, since colonisation, we're still in that boat of, you know, being recognised within our own constitution, which is a massive travesty. But we're not hard to miss in our communities. And so when it comes to the platform like Mabo and what Mabo represented, there needs to be a couple of discussions that need to occur first. One, we as a people need to resolve our own differences and challenges as a community, as a people, and within those cultural boundaries to have that safe platform. Secondly, underneath that same forum, our elders and our old people and our leaders are dying at a dramatic rate. And as a result of that, a lot of the cultural practices of how we would negotiate and deal with these land and sea you know, issues were either taken with them or wasn't passed on. And as a result of that, now we're now having to adopt, you know, a Westminster-style system of cultural negotiation, which is causing a lot of rift because we've got culture versus law.
Yeah.
And when you have culture versus law, then lies the implications around autonomy, sustainability, and transparency about what is in the best interest of our people moving forward. We will continually have this debate until this matter is resolved. Now, in terms of government are set up in terms of a system to box people in categories because it's easier to manage people in those categories. But when you add the complexities around land and sea tenure, traditional law, and then the systems of clanmanship about who can talk with on what behalf, then it becomes complex because they are then guided by a government system that champions what is the best approach in terms of taking legal action against another family member or group. That isn't part of our tonara, our way of life. That's not part of our way of dealing with issues. This is a matter that needs to be recognised first and foremost by Torres Strait Islander people and Aboriginal people, because at the moment, I totally agree with Uncle Charles says that we are breaching Aboriginal protocols because we've taken over and we're living on another man's country without the appropriate approval of a rite of passage. And so when you look at it from a cultural perspective, once you breach that, our systems of communicating, negotiating, becoming self-autonomous, becoming resilient will never be achieved until we resolve the cultural and spiritual connections to this country. And that starts with the appropriate rite of passage on the lands that doesn't belong to us. It's not our homelands, but we're here.
Yeah. Yeah. And is that, Charles, is this a treaty? Are we talking treaty? Just as a, because there's so much in this conversation right now, like, you know, and as other non-Indigenous people here, like, to be having the sort of honour to have you both speak on this. I'm just wondering, is there a message that we can actually give other people living on this land?
Well, for me, before we even get to a treaty status, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. You know, we need to sit at that table and sign on the dotted line as a sovereign people. Yeah. Now, at the moment, we're acting like victims. So we've got to go back to the drawing board. The discussion is not with government. The discussion is not with everybody else. It's between ourselves. We have to find whatever resources that are still available to us now. You know, current elders that that have links back into our past. We've got to make sure that the young fighters of tomorrow understand what they're fighting for. At the moment, they're fighting for rights. We need to change the word rights to responsibility. For example, if you fight for land rights, you're fighting for things that you feel you have a right to. It's about ownership. If you fight for land responsibility, it's not about your ownership, it's what you do with that land. And that's the thing, it's the relationship between you and the land. That's what this whole case was about, is the recognition of my continual connection to that land. You know, but at the moment, there's too much talk at pointing the other way about our rights. Meanwhile, the land is neglected. You know, so we've got to really start pouring our healing, our spirit, our what really heals the world is unconditional love. And at the moment, we don't share that love with one another. You know, we've got to learn to love ourselves before we can love this country. We've got to reconcile with ourselves before we can reconcile with everyone else. Now, we haven't done that. The whole reconciliation movement for me, for example, was all about look at me, look at me. I'll march across the bridge. We all march together. You know, it's all about doing good, but not about being good. You know, so we've got to change how we do things. We change our focus from what this country looks like to what it can be, and what it can be is a place and a nation for all of us. You know, we can't kick white fellas out or visitors out. You know, we can't do that. And as long as we say Mabo is ours or the land is ours, we put a line between us and them. We've got to make this country belong to all of us. That way we stop things like the Adam Goods saga or whatever, you know, racial tension that can come out from it. We've got to set a platform of healing and a platform of connection, a platform of great relationships. And the Meriam culture and even the Aboriginal culture, all Indigenous cultures, was all about great relationships.
Yeah. And on that, like, I mean, you know, on that note too, like a platform of healing, it just feels like every day, actually, it feels like that is needs to be a priority, you know?
Very much, yeah.
Yeah.
But see, the thing is, we keep looking for leaders that sit in offices somewhere else. The leadership that is failing our communities is the leadership in the homes. So how do we empower mum and dad, keep them together? You know, when we start looking at leadership in the homes, we empower the village to be there for everyone. Then our children are protected. That's how we end domestic violence. That's how we look at all, you know, even right down to lateral violence, which is such a big killer in our communities. We're attacking each other instead of standing with each other.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's so much. I'd just like to say thank you to both of you. This is just such a massive conversation that, you know, like I said before, it's just that platform for healing, like Charles said before, it really is something that is so necessary. And you know, once again, when you think about it or when you're trying to do it, it seems quite complex. Hearing you just say it straight out like that, it makes total sense. Yeah? Yeah, and it's, I'll just have a check if there's any questions here. Yeah, people have just written some stuff here, which is great. Yeah, we, you know, currently it's about doing good, not being good. We need a platform for great relationships, which is what Charles said. That is so good. So as we come to the end of this little lunch online, you know, there's a few things that will be happening for this Mabo Day, and hopefully we can actually all take into account this conversation as we move forward. you know, there's some amazing stuff going on. You know, there's some beautiful, like, you know, shout outs are coming in from around this country and around the world, you know, about how people feel about Mabo and what it means to them, which is just lovely. You know, there's going to be an amazing, you know, event that is totally curated by the young people at Digi Youth Arts called MABO DYA. So that is young people have putting their voice on this platform during this time, which is just, you know, it's a beautiful thing. And it will be beautiful to see these young people actually, you know, seeing how they take the lead through their arts. Yeah, so check the Mabo Day Celebrations 2020 Facebook page. But really, everyone, like, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Edward Monaei and to Charles Passi. Like, both of your words are so, you know, they're really hitting home for me today, and I'm sure they are for everyone here at Little Lunch Online. Let's move forward with these conversations in mind as we go into the next stages of this world and the next stages of, you know, looking at what legacy actually looks like. Thank you so much.
Thank you.